You wake before the first crack of dawn, not to the trill of an alarm, but to the gentle tolling of a bell echoing through cold stone corridors. The year is somewhere around 1125, and you are a Benedictine monk cloistered away in a remote English abbey nestled deep in the misty countryside. There is frost gathering on the edges of the wooden window frames, and the air inside your tiny cell smells faintly of beeswax, damp wool, and old parchment. You do not speak, in fact. You haven't spoken since last evening's Compline prayers. Silence is more than a rule here. It is a lifestyle. The rule of Saint Benedict, written centuries before, dictates every moment of your day, including when you wake, what you eat, how you pray, and what you may say, which, for now, is nothing at all. You rise from your struffled mattress slowly, careful not to disturb the chill too much. There is no fire. There rarely is in these cells. Your brown woolen habit is scratchy but familiar, worn in over years of kneeling, chanting, and careful laundering by the novice monks. You splash your face with cold water from the basin. No soap, no towel, only a quick blessing and a silent prayer. By the time you enter the dim corridor, others are already shuffling toward the chapel. The procession is orderly, heads bowed. The flickering of tallow candles casts long shadows on the damp stone walls. You step silently into the choir stalls and begin matins, the first of 7 daily prayers. The psalms are recited in Latin, your voice rising and falling with the others in a chant so old it feels like the very air inside the chapel remembers the melody. After matins and lauds, there is a brief moment to retreat. You might be tempted to imagine monks spent these hours in spiritual contemplation, and sometimes they did, but more often, these hours were filled with chores. You might be sent to tend the herb garden, mend a robe, or assist in the scriptorium, copying lines of biblical text with aching precision by candlelight. All of this is done before the first meal, but not breakfast. Not quite yet. The word breakfast is somewhat misleading in a monastery. For most monks, the first meal of the day known as prandium wasn't served until late morning or even noon. The earlier part of the day was dedicated to fasting, labor, and prayer. But not all monks fasted equally. Illness, age, or a special feast day might alter your routine. On such days, a collation, a small early meal, might be permitted, but this was the exception, not the rule. So what did you eat when the meal finally arrived? In the refectory, the air was warmer, not much, but enough to take the edge off the morning cold. A long wooden table, bare of decoration, stretched beneath arched ceilings. No forks, heronry knives, wooden spoons, and your own fingers. You sat on a bench, eyes lowered, still no speaking. A designated reader, often a younger monk or novice, stood at the lectern, reading aloud from the scriptures or a sermon while the rest of you chewed quietly. The food was simple: brown bread, dense, dark, made of barley or rye was served in small slices. It had been baked the day before in the abbey's ovens, which were stoked once a day to conserve fuel. Sometimes the bread was dipped in a thin broth made from cabbage or leeks, lightly salted but devoid of spice. Salt was costly and carefully rationed. You might receive a hard-boiled egg, if it was Easter season, or a small wedge of cheese made from goat or sheep's milk. Meat was strictly forbidden, except for the ill, and even then, only in small quantities. Instead, the monks relied on legumes and tours, broad beans, chickpeas. Occasionally, dried fish or pickled herring was served. Fish was not considered meat, according to ecclesiastical reasoning, though this didn't make it any more exciting. Your drink: a weak ale called posset, or sometimes watered-down wine. The ale was low in alcohol but high in calories, a vital component for men who fasted often and worked hard. Water was generally avoided, not because of modern concerns about sanitation, but because it was often seen as too light and for spiritual labor. The meal ended with a nod from the prior. You rose again, silently. No scraps were left on the table. Waste was considered a form of sin. Everything was reused, recycled, or fed to the abbey's pigs. Even crumbs were brushed into a wooden bowl for reuse. Nothing was wasted back in the cloister. You returned to your tasks. The same chants echoed off the stone walls. The same boots trod the same path from dormitory to garden, from chapel to refectory. Every day was the same, and that was the point. The sameness was a discipline, a devotion. It allowed your soul to become quiet, steady, emptied of worldly distraction. But even in this repetitive stillness, the breakfast table bore quiet witness to larger movements beyond the monastery walls. The crops grown in the abbey gardens shifted, subtly with the weather, reflecting broader patterns of climate change in the 12th century. New spices and herbs slowly arrived from distant markets in Constantinople or the Levant, though rarely reaching your plate. And as monastic influence grew, abbeys themselves became centers of agricultural innovation, rotating crops, preserving seeds, building fish ponds, all under the silent watch of men eating bread in unison. There's a gentle irony in this, that something as seemingly unimportant as what monks had for breakfast could influence local economies, farming trends, even land ownership. Abbeys were among the largest landholders in medieval Europe. The grain used to make your daily bread may have been grown 10 miles away on land donated by a long-dead nobleman hoping to buy his way into heaven. That loaf of barley, it could be the result of months of coordinated labor, tilling, sowing, harvesting, milling, and baking, all to fill your stomach in silence. You were not just eating, you were participating in a system, spiritual, agricultural, architectural, that held medieval Europe together in ways few today remember. A breakfast so dull, so unchanging, that it helped keep an entire continent fed, focused, and faithful for centuries. And yet, there is something unresolved, isn't there? If monks couldn't speak, how did they complain when the bread was too hard? So here you are, sitting in the refectory, chewing on a piece of week-old barley bread that has the texture of roof tiles. You are a monk under a vow of silence, but you're also human. The bread is dry, the broth is cold, the lentils are, let's just say they've seen better days, and yet, there is no grumbling, no complaints. Not allowed, anyway. But Benedictine monks were clever. Centuries before emojis, monks developed a surprisingly elaborate system of hand gestures to communicate during their silent meals. This was called the monastic sign language, a set of signals that allowed you to speak without technically breaking your vow of silence. These signs weren't universal across all monasteries, but in many parts of medieval Europe, they were detailed enough to make a modern mime jealous. Let's say, you wanted more bread, you would mimic the action of cutting a loaf. Need salt, you'd tap your fingers against the side of your mouth. Want to politely imply that Brother Thomas is chewing too loudly again. Perhaps you'd glance his way and tap twice on the tabbola, quiet reminder, not a rebuke. Some gestures were surprisingly specific. Fish, a motion resembling the swimming of a fish with your hand. Cheese, pretend to slice a triangle in the air. Beans, pinch your fingers together and tap your belly carefully. I need a napkin. Rub your hands together as if drying them. I'd rather eat the herb garden than this again. Well, that one was left to interpretation. This silent sign language was not only practical, it was spiritual. Monks believed that speaking too much led to sin, gossip, pride, even lies. By keeping speech to a minimum, they hoped to discipline both the tongue and the mind. But they still had to function as a community, hence the hand signs, which monks would memorize like vocabulary lists. Some monasteries had hundreds of them. Still, no gesture could fully express flavored disappointment. That required more subtlety. Perhaps a small sigh, just loud enough to be heard by the monk next to you, or a well-timed pause before chewing the next bite. Occasionally, older monks would raise an eyebrow, glance at the bread, and then at the ceiling as if consulting a higher power for culinary forgiveness. And so, in a setting that outwardly seemed silent and still, there was an entire undercurrent of communication happening, signs passed from hand to hand like whispered jokes. The quiet choreography of meal complaints continued, even as the scriptures were read aloud from the lectern, and the spoonfuls of lentils vanished slowly. But it wasn't always grim. Feast days broke the routine. On certain holy days, Pentecost, Christmas, the menu expanded. The bread might be sweeter, the cheese fresher, and a small pastry might even appear, stuffed with fruit or spiced with imported cinnamon. These were rare luxuries, but they tasted all the better because of their rarity. For the sick or the elderly, there were slight adjustments. A separate table, a bit of meat, softer bread, a warm drink. The abbey cared for its own, though never lavishly. Everything was done with moderation, even comfort. As the meal ends, the reader's voice fades into a final prayer. You bow your head, rise with your brothers, and file out of the refectory once more. The sun now pours softly through the high windows. The day has properly begun. Labor and prayer await. You won't eat again until sunset, but as you return to the cold halls, your stomach a little fuller, your heart a little steadier, you can't help but think, perhaps the bread was softer today, or maybe, just maybe, your standards have softened. Either way, you make the sign for thank you to the cook on your way out. He nods, and pretends not to notice Brother Thomas still chewing behind you. Evening comes slowly in the monastery. Shadows lengthen over the cloister walkways. A quiet hush settles in, not so different from the quiet of the morning, but deeper somehow. more settled. The rhythm of the abbey is winding down. You've spent the day in labor, copying texts, tending the herb garden, repairing a broken roof tile, or collecting herbs for the infirmary. By the time Vespers evening prayers begin, your stomach has been empty for hours. Once again, the bell rings. You process to the chapel, chant your psalms, and file out in the same slow, silent fashion. Then it's time for the final meal of the day, supper or cena. Despite its noble name, cena is modest. Supper in a monastery is lighter than the first, meal more of a snack than a meal. But you're hungry, and even a small bowl of broth with bread tastes like a reward. You sit once more in the long wooden refectory, the same layout, the same reader at the lectern. This time, perhaps, he reads from the life of Saint Anthony or a collection of sermons on humility. Your meal consists of broth than the mornings, sometimes flavored with onion or garlic. A second portion of bread may be offered, but never more than needed. Lentils, chickpeas, or cooked beans are frequent guests. Occasionally, on special days, a custard-like dish made of eggs and milk called a frumenty might be served. Still no meat, and still no speaking. The Benedictine rules specified abstinence from meat, not out of cruelty, but discipline. Flesh stirred up the passions. It was said passions best kept at bay in the calm, disciplined life of a monk. Instead, fish served as the permissible indulgence. In wealthier abbeys, monks constructed elaborate fish ponds so they could raise their own supply, carp, pike, even freshwater eels. Curiously, eels were highly prized. Slippery, boneless, and rather tricky to catch, they appeared in many monastic menus, boiled, stewed, or even jellied. It wasn't exactly exciting, but it was acceptable, and it gave the monks something to look forward to, however mildly. Once or twice a year, something exceptional happened, a feast day. The rare delight of feast days and high holy days or Christmas, the feast of St. Benedict. The monastery relaxed its strict food rules. The kitchens filled with unusual scents, roasted nuts, honey-glazed carrots, apples stewed in wine, and sometimes even pastries shaped like fish or doves. The bread became white and soft, made from sifted flour instead of barley. Cheese was richer. Butter was served. Stewed prunes or pears might make a guest appearance. You might even find yourself served a tart filled with spiced lentils or ground almonds, sweetened with honey and decorated with herbs. All eaten in the same silence, of course, but with a distinct sparkle of joy. Sometimes, nobles donated exotic food to abbeys on feast days. A wheel of cheese, a basket of apples, even wine from southern vineyards. Monks accepted these with grace and gratitude. These moments weren't just indulgence, they were sacred. A reward not for effort, but for devotion. Feast days reminded the monks that joy had a place in holiness. That celebration, when done humbly, was as sacred as fasting. Fasting. The long hours of nothing but feast days were rare. More common were fast days, especially during Lent and Advent. During these seasons, the already minimal diet shrank further. No dairy, no eggs, no ale, just dry bread, a little vegetable soup, and water. Some monks fasted for spiritual purification, others fasted out of routine. Either way, hunger became a quiet companion, and yet, they endured it. To modern minds, this might seem harsh, even cruel, but to the monks it was structured. Every crumb, every sip, every hour of hunger was part of a larger spiritual pattern. Their lives were a kind of living calendar measured, not in pleasures, but in prayer and perseverance. Their meals weren't simply nourishment, they were rituals, predictable, grounding, safe. The final meal, the meal you didn't eat. There's one more meal worth mentioning, the one you never had. For monks in stricter orders, there was no supper at all, only one meal per day served, around midday, and that was it. The rest of the time, fasting, prayer, and water. This was especially true in the Carthusian or Cistercian orders, who believed in pushing the body even further. So if you were a Benedictine, you were already considered to be living a balanced life. One meal in late morning, a small second meal in the evening, a bit of ale, a slice of cheese, and the peace of knowing exactly what to expect every day of the year. There's a peculiar peace in repetition, the predictability of bread and lentils, the silence of a shared table, the simple blessing of eating without hurry, without noise, without distractions. It wasn't an exciting life, but it was a calm one, a deliberate one. And as the final bell rang for Compline, and you made your way back to your cell by candlelight, belly just full enough, heart just quiet enough, you gave thanks for barley bread, for beans, and for one more peaceful day of eating in sacred silence. Story 2. The Lunchtime Secrets of Ancient Japanese Fishermen. Rice, salt and sea. A day on the water in 10th century Japan. Before the first bird stirs in the treetops. Before the morning haze has begun to lift from the silver surface of the lake, you are already awake. Your body knows the hour without need for a bell or clock. You've risen before dawn every day for the last 23 years since the day your father handed you the oar and nodded silently toward the water. You are a fisherman in 10th century Japan, in the Heian era, but not the Heian of Kyoto's golden salons or painted poetry scrolls. You live far from the court along the wooded shores of Lake Biwa, where the world is slower, wetter, and considerably more fish-scented. You pull on your cotton robes, worn soft by years of sun, salt, and rain. The color was once white perhaps, now it's a gentle, uncertain gray. Your sandals are straw, your hat too wide and shaped like a shallow bowl rests on a peg beside the door. Outside, your boat waits like a sleeping animal, rocking lazily. Against the bank, your wife is already awake. She does not speak, there is no need. A small lacquered box, wrapped in cloth, sits near the hearth. Your lunch the same as yesterday, the same as most days. She tucks a final yumiboshi into the rice, presses the lid gently into place, and nods. You nod back. It is a quiet marriage, but a good one. The air outside is crisp. The fog lies low on the lake like a tired blanket, clinging to the water's surface. You push your boat gently into the shallows, hop in with practiced grace, and begin to row. The oars cut silently through the water, each stroke as familiar as your own breath. There is no wind, but there is motion. Always motion. The quiet economy of the lake. You are not alone on Lake Biwa. Far in the distance, you can see the shapes of other boats, tiny silhouettes like brushstrokes on a scroll painting. Some belong to friends, others to rivals. But no one speaks out here. The lake asks for silence. Fishing is not only your livelihood, it's your clock, your ritual, your companion. You do not own the lake, but it feels like it owns you. You know where the eels sleep, where the trout linger in the reeds, where the carp gather in the cool shadows near the stones. You bait your lines, or cast your woven nets, or lower your bamboo basket traps. Depending on the season and the mood of the water, the day begins in complete stillness. And then, eventually, a tug. The catch begins. The box beneath the nets around mid-morning. When the light has softened from silver to gold, and your back aches from sitting, you pause. This is the moment you wait for. You reach down beneath your coiled netting and lift the lunchbox, a humble treasure chest in the shape of a square. Its smooth lacquer is scratched and worn, but still glows faintly in the light. You unwrap the cloth, place it gently across your knees, and open the lid. The scent of vinegared rice rises to greet you, clean, cool, and a little sharp. Your stomach tightens in response. The rice is packed in a neat mound, pressed into a triangle, edges wrapped with seaweed. Onigiri, though you've never used that word, you just call it meishi. It is the center of your meal, and in a way, the center of your life. Each bite is familiar, salty, slightly tangy from the rice vinegar your wife adds to keep it fresh. A single yumiboshi, dark pink and wrinkled like a sour little heart, rests in the middle. It is there for a reason, not just flavor, but preservation. Long before anyone speaks of microbes or spoilage, you know that this tiny fruit keeps your rice from turning. Its sharp taste jolts you, and you smile despite yourself. Next to the rice lies a thin piece of dried taisi bream, seasoned with miso the night before, and then quickly grilled over the clay hearth. It's chewy, smoky, a little tough, perfect for slow chewing between casts. You eat with your fingers. As always, you are taught to be careful with the fish bones, though by now your tongue can find them without thinking. You once joked to your wife that she could stop removing them. Your mouth has learned to do the job better. She didn't laugh, but she didn't disagree either. There's more. A small corner of tsukemono, pickled radish and burdock root, sliced thin and soaked in brine. The crunch cuts through the softness of the rice. Another corner holds something special. A few pieces of tamagoyaki, sweet egg rolled into layers, as golden as the morning light on the water. This is a kindness. Eggs are not cheap, but your wife knows you row harder when you know there's egg. In the box you sip barley water from a gourd. It is lukewarm, with a nutty taste, but it soothes your throat. Some men bring plain water, but you've always preferred this. It reminds you of your mother, who used to boil rice husks to make the same drink when you were a child. Time measured in bites and birds. There is no clock. You do not need one. The birds tell you when it's late. The feel of the sun on your shoulders tells you when it's nearly noon. The insect's silence warns you when the wind will change. But right now, everything is still. You eat slowly, because there is no reason to rush. The meal is not a break. It's a ceremony. Not grand, not formal, but spiritual in its rhythm. You stare out across the lake between bites, listening to the water lap against the hull of your boat. Occasionally, a fish jumps. Occasionally, nothing happens. It is peaceful. Your hands are rough. Your clothes are damp. Your life is simple. And yet, there is something extraordinary about this moment, a quiet luxury that the courtiers in Kyoto would never understand. They eat their elaborate banquets, their layered sweets and perfumed teas, but they do not eat on a boat, in silence, watching the mist rise from the water as a crane drifts overhead. You have never met a nobleman, but you do not envy them. You eat your last bite of rice. The onigiri is gone. You take a final sip, then rinse your fingers in the lake and wipe them on the cloth that wrapped your lunch. Everything goes back in the box. Everything has its place. You slide the lid closed, slowly that it makes a gentle click, one of the few sounds you allow yourself. The day carries on. You do not linger long. The lake calls you back. Your nets need checking. The fish are moving, the sun is warming the water, and you can feel the subtle shift in current. Work is not waiting, but neither is it rushing. You row forward slowly, mind clear, belly full. Sometimes, when the catch is poor, you think of selling your boat and trying something else. But what else would you do? This life is what you know. Your father fished. His father too. You do not fish to become rich. You fish because the lake is your home, and because rice tastes best after rowing. A final note on the box. That lacquered box is not special, not by court standards, but it was made by your brother, carved from cedar and sealed with sapand. You have used it every day for almost 15 years. The grain is dark and swirled like tiny water waves. You once dropped it in the lake. It floated. You took this as a sign. When it cracks someday, you will not replace it. Your son will carve a new one. He already knows how, and when he eats his rice on the water, perhaps he too will pause, look at the mountains, and feel the same quiet satisfaction. You are full. The day is long. The nets are waiting. The wind is still. But for a moment longer, you sit, watching, breathing, listening, and smiling softly to yourself, because the rice was just right today. Asterisk, how fishermen preserve their meals without refrigeration. Imagine this. It is midsummer on the shores of Lake Biwa. The sun has not yet cleared the mountains, but already the air is thick with warmth and the faint tank of algae. You, a Heian period fisherman, are crouched beside your drying rack. Your hands are slick with fish scales, your sleeves damp with lake water. You do not know the word refrigeration, but you know well what happens when a fish is left in the sun for too long. It rots, and that means your family goes hungry. In your world, preservation is not a skill. It is not even a tradition. It is a necessity woven into your daily rhythm, like rowing or breathing. There are no ice boxes, no cool cellars. Your food must outlast the sun, the weather, and the whims of the fish gods. And so, you've learned the ancient art of making food last longer than it wants to. Let's take a look at how 1. The drying ritual. Sun, salt, and stillness. The first method you rely on is the oldest in human history, drying. It begins just after the morning catch. The fish are still twitching when you gut them with your worn knife, swift, precise, almost meditative. You rinse the bodies in lake water, slit them open along the belly, and lay them flat on bamboo racks. These racks are handmade from reeds, gathered along the lakeshore, tied with thin strips of mulberry bark. You sprinkle the fish with coarse sea salt. Salt doesn't come easy inland, it's traded from the coast, but it's worth every grain. The salt draws moisture from the flesh, tightening it, firming it, making it less welcoming to the invisible enemies, rot, mold, insects, and time. As the sun climbs higher, the racks are moved, sometimes turned slightly to face the breeze. You sit nearby on an overturned bucket, chewing a sliver of misecured turnip and watching your work like a priest watches an altar. Flies buzz lazily nearby but do not land. The salt is doing its job. By afternoon, the fish are no longer soft. They are leathery, chewy, and safe. Not delicious, perhaps, but dependable. You will eat them on the water tomorrow, maybe the next day. If your wife is feeling generous, she will soak them in broth to soften them before the evening meal. On the boat, you like them dry, a strip of fish between your teeth and the horizon ahead. It is enough. 2. Salting. Packing time in a barrel when the catch is good. Too good to eat or dry in a single day. You turn to a deeper ritual, barrel salting. Behind your home, shaded by a linter roof of thatch, stands a row of wooden barrels. Inside, layers of fish and salt, pressed together in a briny embrace that can last weeks or even months. You lay the fish like firewood head to tail, side by side, then cover them with salt, a layer of fish, a layer of salt, a stone on top, to weigh them down. Time and salt do the rest. Slowly, moisture seeps from the flesh and pools at the bottom of the barrel. The salt penetrates every muscle, transforming the fish into something dense, pungent, and oddly comforting. This is not food for today. This is food for winter, food for sickness, food for when the lake goes quiet and the fish disappear. The smell is strong. Your neighbors wrinkle their noses when they pass, but they'll come asking for a handful of salt curd Thai come January. When the snow is high and their boats are frozen to the shore, you might share, or you might trade. Point 3. Miso curing flavor and fermentation. Some days, your wife surprises you. Instead of drying or salting the fish, she pulls out the thick ceramic jar of miso, that golden, earthy paste made from fermented soybeans, rice, and salt. It is her grandmother's recipe. You are not allowed to touch it. She slices the cleaned fish into long fillets and smears them with the paste. Each piece is wrapped in a leaf, pressed flat, and tucked into another jar. Over the next few days, the miso works its quiet magic. It doesn't just preserve, it transforms. The enzymes in the miso break down the fish's proteins, softening the flesh, deepening the flavor, adding that elusive taste the monks call umami. When the curing is done, she washes the fish and grills it over a charcoal fire. It is smoky, savory, and subtly sweet. You eat it with vinegar, rice, and silently wonder how something can be so simple and so perfect. You thank her. She nods, but says, next time, catch one bigger. For pickling and vinegar chemistry in a crock. There are no metal jars in your world, only stoneware crocks glazed with ash, lined with rice, straw. In these, your wife stores vegetables steeped in vinegar, salt brine, or sometimes a mixture of the two with a splash of sake or mirin. Fish, too, can be pickled. Small river fish are cleaned, quickly blanched in hot water, then soaked in vinegar, seasoned with ginger, daikon, and a touch of citrus peel. The flavor is sharp and cleansing. The acidity halts decay. These pickles do not last forever, but they will keep for several days, even longer in winter. You pack them in your lunchbox in the hot season, when even the dried fish seem to sweat. The pickled fish tastes cool, tangy, and electric. You chew, slowly, staring across the waves, and feel awake. 5. Rice preservation. The onigiri philosophy. Even rice, your beloved staple, must be preserved. Freshly steamed, it is soft and sticky, but left too long, it becomes sour. So, it is seasoned with rice vinegar, cooled quickly, and shaped while still warm. This is not just tradition, it's microbiology by intuition. You wrap the rice in sheets of nori or tuck it into folded bamboo leaves, which keep moisture in and pests out. The rice stays safe until midday. Sometimes it's flavored with sesame, pickled vegetables, or even a pinch of dried bonito flakes for luck. And then there is the umeboshi, a single pickled plum, small and intensely sour, nestled into the rice. Like a jewel, its power is not just in its taste, but in its chemistry. High in salt and acid, the umeboshi acts as a natural disinfectant, guarding the rice from spoilage. Even on a summer day, out on the lake, the rice remains safe under its plum guardian. You'll always eat the plum last. As a final challenge, or a reward, you're not sure which. 6. Fermentation, the boldest bite. Then there is narazushi, the ancestor of modern sushi. It is not part of your daily diet, but when the monks from the hill temple gift you a small pot, you accept it with reverence and a little dread. Narazushi is made by packing salted fish between layers of fermented rice and sealing the whole thing in a heavy wooden tub for months. The rice breaks down into a sour, pungent mash. The fish becomes soft, tangy, and intensely aromatic. The smell is enough to frighten your cat, but the flavor, once you get past the scent, it is unlike anything else. Sharp, savory, oddly addictive. You eat it with hot tea and wonder who first thought to leave a fish and rice for a whole season and then dared to eat it. Whoever it was. They were both brave and slightly unhinged. 7. Preservation as philosophy. You do not have a refrigerator, but you do have time. You have rhythm. You have a sense of when a fish will spoil just by touching it. You know which pickles will last into autumn. You know how many plums to dry before the rains come. And more than that, you have a philosophy. Preserve what you can, share what you must, waste nothing, eat slowly. Each technique, drying, salting, pickling, fermenting, is more than a method. It is a way of thinking, a way of seeing food, not as a fleeting luxury, but as a long-term relationship. Today's catch is tomorrow's supper. Today's leftovers are next week's gift. Even the sour rice and leathery fish have their place in the cycle. This is how you survive. This is how you care. This is how you honor the lake. And as you sit at the water's edge, watching your fish dry in the sun, your lunchbox beside you, you smile. Because the fish might spoil, but the knowledge never will. Story 3. The Accidental History of Aztec Garden. Snacks. Welcome to the floating gardens of Tenochtitlan. You wake with the birds, not because you must, but because you want to. In this part of the world, the early morning air tastes like sweet earth and lake water, and you like to arrive before the sun gets too nosy. You're a gardener, not just any gardener. You tend a chinampa floating garden that drifts gently in the soft currents around the city of Tenochtitlan. The year is 1480. The Aztec capital is at its peak, shining temples, endless marketplaces, golden hummingbirds darting between canals. But you don't wear gold. You wear a cotton tunic, and your prized possession is a well-used paddle carved from cypress. You step into your canoe just as the first pink glimmers of light touch the tops of the mountains. The canal is quiet. A few dragonflies skim the surface. The water is cool and mirrors the sky. You paddle slowly so as not to spill your coffee. Well, not coffee. Exactly. A warm drink made of ground amaranth, maize, and a hint of cacao, whisked into water with a wooden stick. It's bitter, earthy, and more energizing than a temple priest's sermon. You arrive at your chinampa, long rectangular bed of soil. Built by your great-grandparents, it floats, but not freely. Alwo trees anchor it, their roots growing into the soft lake bed below. Their branches shade the soil. Their leaves rustle like gossip. Everything here is alive. Your snack pantry grows from the ground. You didn't bring lunch. That's not laziness, it's tradition. The chinampa feeds the China MP era. You kneel in the warm soil, brushing aside a few curious insects. Your hands know where to reach. The first snack of the day, a tiny firm tomatat, ancestor of the modern tomato. It's not red. It's yellow-green and smaller than a walnut. You pop it into your mouth. It bursts with tangy juice. Not sweet, but satisfying. You don't say yum. You just nod, like an old friend saying hello. Next comes a few leaves of quolites, wild edible greens that grow wherever they like. Today's variety is peppery and bright. You chew slowly. It tastes like spring. You wonder how something so small can taste like an entire season. Then your eye catches the chia patch. Tiny purple flowers wave in the breeze. The seeds are ready. You pinch a small handful, toss them into your mouth, and feel them stick to your tongue. These are no ordinary seeds. Chia is food and medicine. It gives strength. Runners carry it in tiny pouches. Priests eat it before long ceremonies. You eat it because it makes your brain feel like a hummingbird. S-wings, and because it crunches in such a satisfying way. Squash blossoms and floating daydreams. Further down the row, you find a curling vine. Squash. The fruits are still small, but the flowers are open and glorious, bright orange-yellow, fluttering gently in the breeze like lazy butterflies. You pick one, then two. They are soft, almost silly. You bite the edge of a petal. It tastes faintly sweet, faintly green, and very much like summer. You remember your grandmother used to stuff them with beans and steam them over hot stones. You are not your grandmother, you just eat them raw. Across the water, a canoe glides by, a woman and her son. The boy is eating something wrapped in corn husk. You can smell it from here. Tamale, warm and steamy, probably filled with mashed beans and wild episode leaves. You wave. She waves back. No one is ever in a hurry here. The accidental snack philosophy. Your chinampa isn't just food, it's philosophy. There is no planting without intention, no harvesting without thanks. You do not snack in secret. You do not binge. You nibble, chew, pause, reflect. What's growing beside the beans today? Jicama maybe. The root is crunchy and sweet. You dust off a bit with your hands and snap off a piece. It tastes like the sound of water. Feels cool, fresh, and slightly mysterious. A grasshopper lands near your foot. You look at it, it looks back. You consider it. You've eaten many before. Toasted over a fire with chili and salt. They make a fantastic crunch, but today feels too quiet for crunching insects. You let this one go. It hops off like it knows you are merciful. The mystery of Tlaxcali crumbs. As midday approaches, you find yourself craving something more solid. You remember something you tucked in your satchel last week, a stale piece of maize flatbread, cold, firm, and slightly curled at the edges. You chew it slowly. It's not impressive, but with a little avocado mash, which you do not have, or roasted squash, which you forgot to cook, it would be nearly gourmet. Still, the flavor is comforting. A little smoke, a little salt, a little thyme. You sip from your gourd water infused with cacao husks and a sprig of mint from the garden's edge. It is bitter. You like that. A snack for the gods. You remember that tonight is a festival. There will be offerings at the temple. Someone will bring amaranth cakes, tiny discs made from popped seeds, mixed with honey and formed into sacred shapes. The priests will eat them first, then the rest. You plan to sneak to. These are not just snacks, they're offerings, a way to feed the gods and also, conveniently, feed yourself. You remember once offering a particularly plump tamale to the rain god Talokan the next day. A thunderstorm knocked down your neighbor's maize fence. You're not saying it was your tamale, but you haven't missed a food offering since. Afternoon drift and thoughts of dinner. You lie back beneath a willow tree. A light breeze makes the reeds hum. You're full, not stuffed, but satisfied in a way that feels ancient. Around you, the chinampa continues to feed birds, insects, and the invisible life below the water's surface. You wonder what future people will eat. You wonder if they'll even remember how to chew slowly. You take another bite of jicama. A frog croaks, a duck flaps its wings. You close your eyes and let the world snack with you. The unexpected power of chia, amaranth, and Aztec superfoods. Imagine this. You've just finished tending your chinampa in the afternoon sun. Your hands are damp, your sandals muddy. You sit under the arwo tree near the edge of your floating garden, eyes half closed. The lake water laps gently against the reeds. The wind smells of maize, pollen, and distant smoke. You reach into your woven basket and pull out a tiny leather pouch tied with a cord of twisted maguey fiber. Inside, chia seeds. Not a feast, not a fruit, just seeds. Black and gray, almost too small to notice. But these are your fuel. You tip a few into your palm, pop them in your mouth, and chew. They taste like, well, not much. But that's the point. Their power is not in their flavor, but in what they do inside your body. You feel the jolt, not like cacao, not like hunger, but a slow, steady warmth in your belly, as if someone placed a tiny cooking fire beneath your ribs. You stand, you stretch. You are ready to paddle home across the lake. That you are not a warrior, not a messenger, but you feel like one. Because, in the Aztec world, chia is sacred. Chia, the smallest seed with the longest reach. You grow chia on a small corner of your chinampa. It doesn't ask for much. Loose soil, sunshine, time. The plant is slender and tall, with fuzzy leaves and violet flowers. When the blooms die back, the seeds form tiny gray, speckled, and annoyingly hard to harvest. But you do it anyway. Because a handful of chia seeds can do what 3 tamales sometimes can't. Keep you strong from sunup to sundown. Messengers carry them on long journeys. Warriors pack them before battle. Midwives recommend them to new mothers. Priests use them in offerings. Even children chew on them when they're bored. You once tried to feed them to a turkey. The bird looked offended and walked away. But you've never gone a day without them. How to eat a seed without getting bored. Chia isn't flashy, but the Aztecs know how to work with what nature gives. Some mornings you stir chia into a totally warm maize drink, letting the seeds soak and swell. They turn gelatinous like tiny tadpoles swimming in the thick drink. The texture is strange at first, but now you like it. It makes your stomach feel hugged. Other days you grind the seeds into flour, mix them with amaranth, form them into small cakes, then toast them on a clay griddle until they puff just a little. You once dropped one into the canal by accident. A frog ate it. You're still unsure if that was good or bad luck. Amaranth, the grain of the sun. You reach again into your basket and pull out a small paper-wrapped bundle. You unwrap it gently. Inside, amaranth cakes, golden, slightly sticky, smelling faintly of honey and roasted grain. They were made this morning by your cousin's wife, who, between you and your god, is the best cook in your entire Kalpuli. Amaranth Watley, in your language, is more than a snack. It is medicine, energy, ceremony. It grows tall, with crimson leaves and flower heads that look like tiny firecrackers. When ripe, you harvest the seeds, sift them, dry them in the sun, and then toast them until they pop like miniature popcorn. Children love the sound. You love the crunch. In your world, amaranth is used in everything. Steamed with vegetables, mixed into drinks, ground into flour, or best of all pressed with honey into sacred figures offered at festivals. Today, yours is shaped like a small sun. You take a bite. It tastes like joy. The festival that changed your view on snacks. You remember a particular festival day last year. The square in front of the temple was alive with sound. Dancers, musicians, acrobats. The air was thick with the smells of tamales, cacao, roasted beans, and flowers. At the center of it all stood a towering statue made entirely from amaranth dough. It represented a god. You forget which one, but its face was serene and kind. Children lined up to press small bits of dough against its chest. Later, the priests cut the statue into pieces and distributed them to the crowd. You were given a slice shaped like a feather. You ate it slowly, and for a moment you felt like you could float. When superfoods were just food. You chuckle now, thinking of how serious the priests are about chaya and amaranth. They bless the fields, offer incense, chant before the harvest. You understand, these foods are special, but to you, they are also normal, daily, comforting. You grew up with chia gruel on cold mornings, amaranth cakes on festival days, a little pouch of seeds tucked into your cloak for long walks to the market. You've heard rumors that these plants grow in other regions, that traders bring them north and south, but they're valuable. But to you, they're like sunlight, always there, always welcomed at the secret snack science of Aztec life. You don't know the word nutrition, you don't count calories, but your body knows what it likes. Chia holds water in your belly and keeps you cool. Amaranth builds muscle and fills your bones with strength. Together, they give you the energy to row across the lake, dig compost into your soil, climb trees for fruit, and still dance a little at sunset if the drumbeat is right. No wonder the warriors snack on them. No wonder the priests bless them. No wonder your mother told you, if you ever get lost in the jungle, just chew chia and wait. You've never gotten lost in the jungle. But still, good advice. Snack time is sacred time, even now, as the sun begins to dip low behind the mountains and the sky turns orange. You sit quietly and chew. You're not thinking of war, or taxes, or temple sacrifices. You're thinking of snacks. You're thinking of how lucky you are that your garden gives you everything you need, not just to survive but to sit, to rest, to smile with food in your cheek and wind in your hair. Across the water, someone plays a flute, a duck quacks, a child laughs, and you reach once more into your pouch, find 3 last chia seeds at the bottom, and place them on your tongue. You let them sit, soak, swell, and you whisper, "Thank you." When tamales were wrapped in flowers, the sun begins its slow descent behind the jagged peaks surrounding Lake Texcoco, casting long shadows across the sparkling waters of Tenochtitlan. The air cools, but a gentle warmth still lingers, mixing with the soft fragrance of blooming trees and the smoke curling from distant hearth fires. You are a gardener returning from your chinampa, your hands still smelling faintly of damp earth and sweet blossoms. The day's work was steady and familiar, yet as always, it leaves you with a quiet hunger, not just for food, but for the comfort of home and shared meals. Tonight, you have been invited to a neighbor's home for dinner, a welcome break. From cooking over your own small fire, you accept gladly, knowing that what awaits is more than sustenance. It is an experience shaped by centuries of tradition, nature's bounty, and the tender artistry of your people. As you approach the reed-walled hut, lantern light flickers behind woven screens. The faint hum of conversation and laughter drifts out, accompanied by the gentle clinking of clay pots and the warm, earthy aroma of cooking masa. Inside, the house is modest but welcoming. Walls are adorned with hand-painted murals depicting gods, warriors, and the natural world intertwined. The hearth glows orange and gold, illuminating a wooden table that commands the center of the room. Upon this table rests the evening star, trays lined with vibrant flower petals, cradling steaming tamales. But these are no ordinary tamales. Unlike the usual corn husks or banana leaves used elsewhere, here the tamales are lovingly wrapped in petals of marigolds, nasturtiums, and delicate blossoms from the pocketal tree, a fragrant flower native to your land. The petals are soft to the touch, delicate yet resilient, their colors deep orange, fiery red, bright yellow form a natural tapestry that delights the eye even before the first bite. Your host, an elderly woman with eyes twinkling like polished obsidian, offers you a tamal wrapped in a deep gold marigold. You accept reverently, sensing the centuries of care and ritual embedded in this simple bundle. You unwrap the petals carefully. The aroma of fresh flowers mingles with the faint sweetness of the masa inside. The soft dough is warm and tender, made from finely ground nixtamalized corn mixed with a touch of water and a pinch of salt. Inside lies a filling of slow-cooked black beans, seasoned gently with local herbs and a hint of smoky chili. The tamal melts in your mouth, its flavors balanced and soothing. As you chew slowly, savoring the complex softness and the faint floral whisper from the petals, your host explains the significance of this practice, part practicality, part poetry, part sacred tradition. The practicality of petal wrapping. In the humid climate of the lake basin, corn husks and banana leaves can sometimes invite unwanted visitors. Bugs and small critters, drawn by the warmth and moisture of freshly cooked masa, find it easier to breach these wrappings. The petals, however, offer a subtle barrier. Their delicate oils and fragrances deter many pests. The soft texture helps retain moisture, keeping the tamales tender well after cooking. When steamed or warmed, the petals release gentle aromas that infuse the food inside, creating a sensory experience far richer than taste alone. Your host recalls how, in years past, tamales wrapped in petals were a favorite among travelers and traders moving along the lakes and rivers. Lightweight and fragrant, they stored well, easy to carry on long journeys where fresh food was scarce. The flour wrapping also aided in portion control. Since petals are naturally fragile and limited in size, they encouraged smaller, more mindful servings, a subtle reminder to appreciate each bite rather than rush to fill the belly. Petals as sacred symbols. Beyond the practical, there is a spiritual dimension. Flowers have long been regarded as gifts from the gods, symbols of life, renewal, and beauty. The pocket or flower, in particular, is sacred. Its soft white blossoms appear at dawn and close by mid-morning, a daily cycle mirroring the balance between light and shadow, life and rest. By wrapping food in petals, your ancestors believed they honored the gods who sustain the earth and skies. The practice turned each meal into an offering, a silent prayer, a moment of gratitude. This tradition is strongest during festivals and ceremonies, when tamales wrapped in flowers are presented on temple altars or carried in processions. Sharing them with family and friends strengthens bonds, reminding all of the interconnectedness of people, plants, and the divine. A culinary legacy. As you eat, your mind drifts to the preparation. You remember the mornings when you and your siblings helped gather flowers before dawn, hands brushed against soft leaves and stems, petals plucked with care to avoid bruising. The vibrant colors carried back to the kitchen, where your mother and aunt prepared the masa and fillings. You helped grind corn on the metate, its rhythmic scraping a steady heartbeat in the household. You learned how to cook beans with lasot, imparting a subtle licorice-like flavor that brightens the dish. The ritual of making tamales was communal. Neighbors exchanged recipes, shared firewood, and taught each other the delicate art of folding petals without tearing. Some families favored nasturtium petals for their peppery bite, others marigolds for their warmth, and a few reserved rare flowers for special celebrations. The Festival of Flowers. You recall one festival in particular, the Xochitl-Fest, the Festival of Flowers, when the city blossomed with color. All day long, streets filled with people carrying baskets overflowing with blooms. Floral garlands decorated homes and temples, while dancers wore crowns woven from petals. On the final night, tamales wrapped in flowers were offered to the gods, then shared among the people in joyful feasting. Music echoed across the lake as drums and flutes played. Firelight flickered on smiling faces, and even the children joined in the chorus of laughter and song. You felt lucky to be alive in such a time, where the simplest foods carried deep meaning, and even a humble snack was a sacred act. Beyond the city, a tradition shared. The practice of wrapping tamales in flowers was not confined to Tenochtitlan alone. Trade and migration spread the custom to neighboring regions, to the people living on the lake's edges, to highland villages and coastal towns. Each place adapted the idea, using native petals and herbs, creating unique versions that reflected local ecology and tastes. In some areas, flowers were mixed into the dough itself, coloring the masa a pale rose or gold. In others, petals were folded inside as a hidden surprise, releasing fragrance only when bitten. This variety enriched the culinary tapestry of Mesoamerica and ensured the tradition's survival even as empires changed. A moment of quiet reflection. You finish the last bite of your tamal and sit back, savoring the gentle warmth spreading through your body. Outside, the night is alive with sound. Frogs calling, leaves rustling, the distant splash of a paddle. You realize that this simple meal is more than food. It is a connection to the land, to your community, to generations of ancestors who taught you to respect the earth's gifts, and to the flowers themselves, ephemeral yet enduring, reminding you that life, like a petal, is fleeting and beautiful. Smile softly, feeling a deep contentment settle in. The sweet secrets of Aztec chocolate snacks. As the golden light of morning spills over the temples of Tenochtitlan, the city awakens slowly. The streets, once quiet and still, now hum softly with the footsteps of market vendors, children chasing each other through the canals, and the faint clinking of pottery. That you are a market seller today, stationed near a bustling corner where the scent of spices, roasted maize, and fresh flowers mingle in the air. Your stall is small but popular, for you sell something the city loves and cherishes. Something both simple and magical. Chocolate. Chocolate more than a drink, but this is not the chocolate you might be familiar with. This is the sacred exotol, a deep, rich, slightly bitter drink made from the seeds of the cacao tree. You have been preparing it since dawn. The process begins with harvesting ripe cacao pods, large oval-shaped fruits with a tough orange shell. Inside, nestled in a sweet, white pulp, lie the precious seeds. These seeds are scooped out, fermented for several days in woven baskets covered by banana leaves, then sun-dried. Next comes roasting. You roast the seeds over a gentle fire, careful not to burn them. The smell of roasted cacao fills the air, warm, earthy, with hints of smoke and something almost floral. Once roasted, you grind the seeds into a paste called chocolate liquor, smooth and glossy. This is mixed with ground cornmeal, chili peppers, and a touch of wild honey or vanilla when available. No sugar here, sweetness comes from the natural flavors of the ingredients. The final product is poured into a tall, narrow vessel and frothed vigorously with a wooden whisk called a molinillo, creating a rich, foamy head. This froth is prized, a sign of skill and care, a drink of the gods and people. Exotol is more than just a treat. It is a sacred drink, believed to be a gift from the gods. Legends tell of the cacao tree's divine origins. It was said to have been brought to the earth by the god Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, who gave the seeds as a reward to the people for their devotion and wisdom. Only priests, nobles, and warriors were initially allowed to drink its bitter power, thought to strengthen the body and mind before battle or ceremony. But over time, the drink spread. Market vendors like you brought it to common folk, who savored it as a morning ritual, an afternoon pick-me-up, or a comforting pause during the busy day. The market ritual. Today, your stall draws a steady crowd. Children tug at their mothers' skirts, begging for a small cup. Elderly men gather nearby, exchanging quiet stories and sipping slowly. Young warriors pause, their eyes bright with anticipation. You serve each cup with care, pouring the frothy liquid into small clay vessels hand-painted with symbols of the sun, moon, or jaguar. As you hand a cup to a young girl, she smiles shyly and whispers, "Thank you, sir." You nod warmly. The secret snack pairings, exotol, pairs beautifully with other snacks. One of your favorites is tecolote seeds, small roasted grass seeds with a nutty flavor, eaten as a crunchy nibble alongside the drink. You also prepare pinole cakes, small, sweet discs made from toasted maize flour mixed with honey and a hint of chili. They dissolve slowly on the tongue, balancing the bitterness of the chocolate. Sometimes during festivals you sell chocolate-dipped amaranth bars, sticky, sweet treats that crackle softly as you bite into them. These bars are a delicacy, rare and prized, a quiet moment of reflection between customers. You lean back and watch the market swirl around you, the vibrant colors of textiles, the cries of vendors calling their wares, the laughter of children darting past. Quiet pride in your craft. You have learned the secrets of chocolate from your ancestors. You know how to coax the perfect froth, how to balance flavors, how to make a simple drink feel like a celebration. And you know that, as much as the gods cherish exotol, so do the people. The journey of the cacao bean. Sometimes, when the market quiets and the sun climbs high, you think about the journey of the cacao bean. From the humid shade of the tropical rainforest to the bustling markets of the lake city, cacao travels far. Traders bring it from distant lands, the low jungles of the south, places where the air is thick with birdsong and the canopy stretches endlessly overhead. You marvel at how a tiny seed can become such an important part of your daily life, a link between earth, sky, and spirit, a taste of history. As you take a final sip from your own cup, the bitter chocolate warmth spreads through you, steadying your breath, sharpening your senses. You imagine the great warriors drinking before battle, their hearts pounding with courage. You think of priests chanting in stone temples, their voices rising in sacred rhythm. And you smile, knowing that the simple pleasures of chocolate connect you to an ancient story, one of nature's gifts, human skill, and the quiet magic of shared moments. The gentle art of Aztec corn snacks. Morning light spills softly over the island city of Tenochtitlan, brushing the temples and canals with a golden glow. The air carries the gentle scent of damp earth, fresh maize, and distant fires kindling. The day's first meals. You are a young apprentice baker, standing at the edge of the bustling market, watching the slow dance of everyday life unfold. Your hands are dusted with fine corn flour, your breath carrying the warm aroma of fresh masa, the ground corn dough that forms the very foundation of Aztec cooking. Today, your task is simple yet sacred, to prepare the snacks that nourish your people from dawn to dusk, snacks born from corn, the gift of the gods. The sacred grain of life. Corn, or maize, is not just a food in your world. It is a symbol, a deity, a lifeline. You've heard the ancient stories of how humans were fashioned from corn dough by the gods, how maize sustains body and soul, how every kernel holds the breath of life. The process begins long before your hands touch the dough. It starts in the field, where farmers tend the tall, waving stalks with reverence, planting according to the moon and weather. When the ears are ripe, they are harvested and brought to the grinding stones called monasteries, where women and apprentices, like you, turn hard kernels into fine flour or coarse grits, making masa, the heart of corn snacks. You scoop the freshly ground maize into a large clay bowl. The flour is pale yellow and soft, smelling faintly sweet. Water is added slowly, and you begin to knead the masa with your hands. It feels cool and slightly sticky, like wet sand, but softer, pliable, full of promise. You press the dough, feeling it smooth and firm under your palms. Perfect masa is neither too dry nor too wet. It holds shape but doesn't crumble. This masa will become more than bread. It will be the base for a variety of snacks that fill stomachs and lift spirits. The art of making tlaxcali, the most common corn snack you make, is tlaxcali flatbreads that are the Aztec equivalent of tortillas. You pinch off a small ball of masa and press it flat on a smooth stone slab called a candlelit. You place the thin dough onto a hot, flat clay griddle called a comal, the heat sending a gentle sizzle through the masa. The smell is warm and comforting, like freshly baked earth. You flip the tlaxcali with practiced ease, watching as tiny bubbles form on its surface, and the edges curl just slightly. The finished bread is soft, warm, and slightly chewy, perfect for wrapping beans, squash, or chile, snacks beyond bread. But tlaxcali are only the beginning. There are many other corn-based snacks you prepare and enjoy, each with its own texture, flavor, and story. For example, totopos, small triangular pieces of masa dough that are toasted or lightly fried until crisp. These are the perfect companion for dipping into rich bean stews or drizzled with honey during festivals. You also prepare pinole, toasted, ground maize mixed with wild honey and spices, formed into small, dense cakes that can be carried easily on journeys or eaten between meals. Pinole is a favorite snack of messengers and traders, providing a concentrated source of energy in a small, tasty package. The ritual of snack making. Snack preparation is more than a chore, it is a ritual. Women and apprentices gather in the early morning light to grind maize, knead masa, and prepare fillings. Songs are sung quietly, melodies passed down through generations, praising the gods and celebrating the earth's bounty. Children watch with wide eyes and often sneak tastes when no one is looking. Every step is mindful, every snack a small offering of care, a snack for every occasion. Your people eat corn snacks at all times of day. In the morning, a warm tlaxcali wrapped around mashed beans offers a gentle start. At midday, Toasted totopos might accompany stews, adding crunch and comfort in the evening. Sweet pinole cakes are enjoyed alongside warm drinks of cacao or maize. During festivals, special corn snacks appear richly filled. Tamales, corn cakes with wild herbs, or decorated breads shaped like animals or gods. Corn and community. The art of corn snacks is woven deeply into social life. Neighbors exchange recipes, mothers teach daughters, and friends share bites and stories. Snacks become tokens of friendship, care, and celebration. During market days, vendors call out their specialties: fresh tlaxcoli, hot off the comal, toasted pinole cakes wrapped in leaves, crispy totopos sprinkled with chili. The rhythm of life pulses gently with the cycle of corn, a snack to remember as the sun sets and the city quiets. You sit beside the fire with a warm tlaxcoli in your hands. You break off a piece, feeling its softness, tasting the faint sweetness of corn and salt. You think of the farmers, the grinders, the cooks, the many hands that brought this snack to your lips. You smile softly, knowing that in these simple bites lives the heartbeat of your culture, the story of your people. And as you drift toward sleep, you feel a quiet gratitude for the gentle art of Aztec corn snacks.